Good morning. Happy Taco Tuesday. There's got to be something we got to be happy about, you know? And tacos are always good, so yeah. Anyway, I am AKA Heather Joy, and I want to welcome everyone both to the live boat and to my own channel. Welcome, everybody. Um, let's see. Oh, yeah, okay. I meant to just say to everybody that's watching on my channel, this is definitely going to be a mental health segment. So, anyway, let me go over the rules for the lifeboat. Number one, we do not discuss politics on the lifeboat unless it's Tommy, and yeah, that's completely up to his discretion. And when he does, it's necessary. So, number two, this is not a religious channel, and you may hear people say things like, I'm going to pray for you. And, you know, I wouldn't have made it to sobriety without my faith. Those things are just fine. But saying things like, my God is better than your God, you know, those things just won't fly. So, yeah, please refrain from that. The third one, please refrain from using any kind of foul language in the comment section and the live chat. Number four, there's absolutely no place for mean people on the boat at all. If we catch you being mean, being a troll, you'll be banned permanently. And that's just the way it is. Anyway, guys, oh boy, any of you who saw last night's live stream, really threw me for a loop. I'm grateful I did it though, because it really shook me well, I haven't been to sleep. I couldn't sleep. It bothered me. But it did let me know all of the things that I still need to take care of in therapy. So for me, it was very beneficial. And I really hope that it helped some of you that have, you know, experienced similar things. Anyway, today I want to talk about complex PTSD. Yeah, you know, to explain what that is, though, I need to first explain what PTSD is. And of course, I'm sure you all know that's post-traumatic stress disorder. It is, well, let me tell you how the Mayo Clinic explains it. It's a mental health condition that's triggered by a terrifying event. You either experience it or you witness it. Some of the symptoms might include flashbacks, nightmares, severe anxiety, and a lot of uncontrollable thoughts surrounding the event. Especially, you know, from my experience, immediately after the event, those thoughts, you don't want to think about it, and those thoughts just bombard your thinking constantly. It's frustrating. Now, you know, most people that experience traumatic events, they have difficulty coping immediately after the event. And it usually takes about a month. You know, this is most people, you know, if they have some good self-care and, you know, and a good support system, you know, they get through all of that. However, you know, if those symptoms grow worse, which sometimes they do, you know, that can last for months, sometimes even years. And, you know, if they start to interfere with your everyday life, you know, and how you're functioning, then you most likely have PTSD. You know, let me go over some of the signs and symptoms of just, you know, post-traumatic stress disorder. And again, you know, this can begin within the first month of whatever the traumatic event was, or it can come years later. I've experienced both, where some things, you know, are immediate, and you know that you've got something you need to deal with, and then some things you repress. You know, your brain protects you, and it'll repress them, and these things won't start to come out till years later. So that can happen. The first, they kind of categorize the different symptoms that go on, and the first one would be kind of intrusive memories. So that'd be, you know, like I was just speaking about, you know, recurrent unwanted memories, you know, that have to do with the event that either happened to you or that you watched. You can relive the event in flashbacks. You can be doing something and not even thinking about it, and you'll hear something or smell something or see something that will trigger that, and you'll end up right back there, as if you're right back there and you're reliving it again. You're going through it, in your mind, and those can be pretty distressing. There's often lots of nightmares or very upsetting dreams. That's very common. Severe emotional distress or physical distress. Our bodies, our minds, our spirits, our bodies, our bodies, our mind, our spirits, they're all interconnected. If you've got trouble with one, you're going to have trouble with the other. And very often you're going to have somatic complaints like headaches and stomach aches, things like that. You can also have, reactions to, if you witness something very similar, whether, you see it out in public somewhere or you watch it on TV, but that's very common as well. The next type of signs and symptoms of PTSD, they categorize they call it avoidance. The first example they give, where you're trying to avoid thinking or talking about the event. And guys, I remember this one very distinctly. When I was 11 years old, I was in a really horrific accident. I was on a motorcycle and I collided with a feed truck that used the same road that ran right by our farm. And somehow I got caught underneath that truck and I got dragged down this gravel road. It was a mess. And when I remember waking up in the hospital, and I think that was one of the first things I told my parents. I just said, I do not want to talk about this. I don't. And I said, when I go home, I don't want anybody to mention it to me. I don't, I was very adamant about that. I did not want to think about it. Also, another way of avoidance would be like to avoid the place where the event happened, or you avoid the activity you were doing when it happened, or you avoid the people that might remind you of the incident. The next category they give would be negative changes that you experience in your thinking and your mood. And some of these would be things like negative self-thoughts, or you have negative thoughts about people or the world in general. You have a very negative outlook. You experience hopelessness about the future in many instances. Some people will experience some memory issues, and especially, when it's aspects of the trauma that you went through, because until you are ready and prepared to deal with whatever you've experienced, your brain, if necessary, will repress it. It will hide it from you, and that can. But it can also, when you're in such a negative thinking state, your level of dopamine is definitely down, and dopamine plays a big role in your memory as well, and that can also create memory issues, and even short-term memory issues, from day-to-day things as well. Your memory just doesn't work right, and I've found with myself, with certain things that happened to me in my life that were very traumatic, the time after that, like months or even years, I've noticed I've lost so many memories. I'm sure they're there, but I can't access them anymore. It's as if they're gone. That's very frustrating. Another thing that people experience in this category, they're unable to maintain close relationships. That could be with family, with friends, with children, whatever. Another thing that can happen, you might feel very detached from your family and friends. You just don't feel a connection at all, which would explain it to me. That would explain why you'd have a problem maintaining close relationships. Another thing, you're unable to enjoy the activities that you usually enjoy. Let's see. You're unable to feel positive emotions. And and sometimes you'll just feel emotionally numb. And the final category that they give of symptoms would be changes in your physical and emotional reactions. And what they listed here would be you can be you're hyper vigilant, so you're easily startled or easily frightened. And yeah, I've experienced that many times. When I've been highly stressed because of traumatic events, and anything will just make me jump. Just well, it used to. People could. I had to warn people and beg people not to sneak up behind me and not tease me that way, because it was just more than I could take for a while. Let's see. You A lot of people will find they're always on guard. They're still very, again, hyper vigilant. They're on guard, trying to protect themselves from any more danger. Another thing that can happen, very self-destructive behaviors, and that can include addictions. Trying to numb those feelings or trying to regulate those feelings by drinking or taking a drug, something like that. Insomnia can be a huge issue. All kinds of sleep issues, whether you have a problem falling asleep or you have a problem staying asleep or you just simply can't sleep for very long. Those are all very common signs and symptoms of PTSD right there. A very common one. Another one is poor concentration. Another one would be being highly irritable. You have a lot of angry outbursts, and any little thing will set you off. That's very common as well. And another one would be just an overwhelming sense of guilt or shame. And again, I remember feeling that as far as the accident, that I just spoke of when I was 11. I watched what it did to my parents, because I almost lost my life. I mean, I should have. And then at one point, I thought I was going to lose both my legs. And I just watched what it did to my parents, and the guilt I felt and the shame. I messed up. I felt like the whole thing was my fault. And I mean, it was absolutely overwhelming, and especially for a kid of 11, it was a lot. But, I look back on things now and I realize that I did experience a lot of PTSD symptoms because of that accident. And there are a few things that have lasted even to this day. I mean, that was when I was 11 that the accident occurred. I'm 52, and, there are certain things that will still trigger me. But I have been able to get past so much of it to where it's nothing that I worry about. I don't think about it unless, I mean, for instance, if we're driving, if my husband and I are driving somewhere, he usually does the driving. And, a lot of times if we're traveling long distances to races and things, he gets tired sometimes. And if he hits that rumble strip and you hear that, that really loud, that will set me off. It will just put me immediately in fight or flight. I hate that. But that's really, most of the time, that's the only symptom I have left. So I'm really not complaining. And I really feel like, for the most part, it's just not an issue. I don't even worry about it anymore, which is nice. And I just want to add this. This is just kind of an FYI here. I was reading that for children that are 6 years old or younger, some of the ways that you will see signs and symptoms of PTSD in kids is they will reenact the traumatic event. Or they will do it. They'll do aspects of it through their play. You can see that. And I used my very first nursing job. My first nursing job was in a nursing home, but the first nursing job I had at the hospital was on a child psych unit. And boy, I saw quite a lot of that, and it was very disconcerting to see these poor kids reenacting such horrible things that it was hard to take. And yeah, I didn't work there for more than a year. It was hard. It was hard work. It was hard to witness that. Anyway, another thing that you can see with children 6 and under would be very frightening dreams, but those dreams might not necessarily have anything to do with what happened to them, but they will, it's just their mind's way of dealing with it and trying to get some of that emotion and that angst out, that's what I think it was. But yeah, you can see that with kids. And that's kind of, a basic explanation of what PTSD is, and the common signs and symptoms. Of course, there can be many others, and it's different for everyone. Some you might experience, some you might not. But I did want to say too, that no, I'll add that in later. Never mind. Okay. Now, I want to move on to explaining what complex PTSD is. Now, this is, let's see, I found some really good information by a doctor. Let's see, her name is Dr. Kim Sage, and she has a YouTube channel, and she is a psychologist, a licensed psychologist, and she had some really good explanations and information. She has many videos about complex PTSD, and I found a lot of great info there, and that's where I'm getting a lot of what I'm going to share with you now. She explained that, complex PTSD, it's a condition where you experience some of the symptoms that are very common for regular PTSD, but you're going to have additional signs and symptoms as well, and that can be things that, like, difficulty controlling your emotions, feeling angry, feeling distrustful. Those are just some of the things. But what makes the biggest difference between PTSD and complex PTSD is that with the complex, the trauma that you experience comes from an interpersonal relationship. This is something that has happened relationship wise. It's interrelational trauma where it's been, what you've been through was caused by someone that you were close to, someone most likely that you trusted, and that's the big difference, and it creates a great deal more issues, and I believe it's harder to treat, honestly. And that I'm going off of what I've seen as a psych nurse and what I've experienced personally, because I know with the accident that I just spoke of, that was simple PTSD. But I find to this day that there are many traumatic things that happened in my childhood that I am still reeling from at times. They can really throw me, and some things can still to this day really trigger me. And as I was just saying earlier, the things that I shared on the live stream last night made me realize how many other things I still need to address in therapy. I really do. These things are very long lasting. Like I said, there's a strong, let's see. Hang on, I wanted to add something else, just kind of another FYI, but I did a lot of reading last night, and I kept seeing that there's a really strong relationship between complex PTSD and repetitive adverse childhood experiences. And what do I mean by that? Well, I got a whole list here. Things like sexual abuse, psychological abuse, physical abuse, neglect, intimate partner violences. These are things that don't just happen in childhood. Okay, bullying, kidnapping, hostage situations, human trafficking, sweatshop workers, slavery, prisoners of war, solitary confinement, or defecting from a very authoritarian religion or cult. All of those things, those are very. Those experiences are repetitive, and I just saw a very strong relationship between those types of repetitive traumas and complex PTSD. I saw that with everything I was reading last night. Let's see, and just another FYI, I came across too. They as far as childhood complex post-traumatic stress disorder, they're coming up with a term called developmental trauma disorder, and this is proposed as what they call complex PTSD in children. I thought that was interesting that they are trying to differentiate it. But, so you might see that term if you do research in this area. Let's see. Anyway, I wanted to share some more of what I learned from Dr. Sage last night when I was watching her videos. And she's explaining, first of all, especially trauma, any kind of trauma that's going to, give you complex PTSD, it's going to, it changes your DNA, but, especially if you're a child when it happens, but it shapes your DNA, it shapes your brain, it shapes hormones, it shapes the way that your body reacts chemically to everything. And it causes structural damage and chemical changes in your brain as well. So, trauma is just, it affects everything about you when you experience it. And, some of the signs, she went through some great signs and symptoms of complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And I just want to make sure that you guys understand what I'm talking about. When I use that term, complex would just mean, it's not simple, that it consists of many different connected parts, would maybe, complex. And, post-traumatic would mean, it's occurring after the traumatic event. Stress, of course, it's just a state of worry, mental tension, and the disorder, that's just a state of confusion or disruption of functioning. So, I hope that, I just want you to really understand what I'm referring to when I use that term. It's kind of breaking it down. The first issue that she talked about was how complex PTSD will affect the human body. And we've talked about many of these things before, but autoimmune disorders are huge with people that have complex PTSD. So you're going to have lots of chronic health issues, and I know I've discussed these quite frequently, but chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, several types of cancers, irritable bowel syndrome, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, lupus, any type of autoimmune disorder where your immune system gets ramped up so high that it is attacking your body. So you're going to have chronic health issues. The second one is you're going to have chronic mental health issues, and this could be just all kinds of different things. And she gave quite a list, and I wrote just some of them down just to give you some examples. And this would be like depression, regular PTSD, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, personality disorders, and that would be like borderline personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder, something like that. Eating disorders, very common. Schizophrenia, that can come from childhood, complex PTSD, bipolar disorder. Those are just some of the examples, but these are usually chronic mental health problems. And, in personal experience, both as a patient and as a nurse, that's what I've seen and that's what I've experienced. The third one, and this, everyone on the lifeboat will understand this one for sure. You become overly reliant on drugs and alcohol, so addictions. And I also thought it was interesting that she talked about even cigarette smoking. And I guess she's got a whole video I didn't have time to watch, but she's got a whole video of that talks about just that right there. But there's a huge number of people that have experienced chronic PTSD that have smoked or do smoke cigarettes. Very common. And I just want to just tell everybody that is viewing this on my own channel. Now, shameless plug there, guys. But I want to tell you about the Lifeboat, which, I'm streaming on as well. This is, if you are dealing with an addiction, if you're finding you're overly reliant on some substance, check out the Lifeboat. come over and check it out, because you get a lot of help here, a lot of support. The people here are the best. So anyway, let's see, but anyway, that all of that is just, to numb or to regulate your emotions, the addictions, that reliance on a substance. The fourth one she talked about was you may have a tendency to dissociate. What that means, basically, just spacing out at times. It can be at appropriate times, at inappropriate times. A lot of children that experience traumatic things, that's one way of coping, is they check out. They're somewhere else. I know I've done that without having control of it in my past, and it's very frustrating to everybody, to me, but everybody around me as well. Because if you're checked out and you're not responding, it's a little weird. But people can experience a lot of ADHD symptoms, which is a form of dissociation. Memory issues, again, and focus issues are very common. It's just your brain's way of dealing with the past and the present. The fifth one would be people can end up being very harshly critical, or they're very perfectionistic in the things that they do. They have very perfectionistic tendencies. They're very, and when I was talking about being harshly critical, they're of themselves. Okay. And I still do this, and this is one thing I have been working on, but I still do this in any situation I am in. When there are other people around me, I'm constantly assessing the situation. I'm watching people's posture. I'm watching their body languages. I'm watching their facial expressions. I'm watching all the nonverbal cues I can pick up on, and I'm listening to their voice, not just the words that they say, but the tone that they use. All of those things, I became very adept at picking up on all of those things, just being extremely observant, because the home that I grew up in, you never knew where my mother was going to be mentally and emotionally. You never knew if it was going to be a good day or a bad day. And you were constantly just on edge, walking on eggshells, just trying to make sure that you knew what was going on and you could do whatever you possibly could to try to keep the situation from going nuclear. And I still do that. I drive myself crazy. I drive my poor husband crazy, and definitely something I'm working on. But yeah, I know that one very well. But you're doing it because at one time it was necessary to survive, whether it was physically or emotionally or even both. The sixth one she talks about, she calls it toxic shame, and I used to suffer terribly from this as well. And what she means by that would be like you feel stupid, you feel ugly, you feel worthless, or you feel like you have little or no value, and you have a feeling that no matter what you do, you're never going to get it right. And you can also even feel like deep down in your core that there's just something absolutely wrong with you, and that can be extremely debilitating as far as just trying to function as a human. It's not a good place to be in, and I'm really grateful that I've been able to work out of that, but it used to be a huge problem. I had absolutely no self-worth whatsoever. The seventh one she talks about would be you feel like you just have a lack of worthiness in general, and you just feel like no matter what you do, you are never going to get it right. And it's because you have. I'm trying to think of a good example here to explain this one better. Say you have a parent that maybe 80% of the time they're really scary, and you can't trust them for the things that you need, or the attention or the love that you might need from this person. And maybe the other 20%, they are, they're happy and they're loving, and you get what you need. But it leaves you just, again, kind of walking on eggshells. And I think this kind of that kind of leads to this, where you just have this general, you just don't feel worthy or like you're ever going to get anything right. And it's because so many times you've tried to keep everything just so, to protect yourself, and it's not worked. When it's only right 20% of the time, it can be really, really damaging that way. And a lot of people, when they have this symptom, they expect to fail in everything, and it's really sad, because you do anything with that mindset, more than like you're going to fail, and that's a difficult one. Number 8 would be emotional flashbacks. And oh boy, guys, this is something that happens to me to this day very frequently. And what this is, something will happen that'll cause you or trigger you to just have an emotional regression. Something, sometimes it's even just a smell of something, and it throws you right back. It's not like a complete flashback, it's an emotional flashback. And you'll be out, like I remember last summer I was out in the garden. I was just working in the garden, and I was just letting my mind just wander wherever. I wasn't really thinking about anything. I was just working in the garden, and I don't remember what it was that triggered me, but all of a sudden, bam, and I was right back. I was having all these incredible feelings of shame and just self-hatred, and just beating myself up. And I thought, I didn't even know where it was coming from, but I'll experience things like that frequently. It happens a great deal, and it's very frustrating. And again, it's just other things I am working on in therapy right now. But, it happens to me quite frequently. I mean, not just working in the garden. I mean, I can go running, or I'll be playing the piano, just things where I'm not thinking about anything specific, and my mind just kind of wanders. Sometimes things get triggered, and you'll all of a sudden you'll just be full of emotions that just weren't there before. And it's very frustrating, especially when you are in public and it's a really strong one, and you just can't stop the tears. That's really, really frustrating. And it's almost anything can transport you right back there. Okay, number 9. Again, I remember this one very, very distinctly. Control issues, where you just need to be in control. You've needed control, because it's been central to your survival. Again, whether it's physical or emotional survival, but you've been through something traumatic. You don't want it to happen again. You try to control everything. And I've seen this and experienced this both, but in an eating disorder. People that have eating disorders, it comes, a lot of the time, it comes down to control. The control has been taken from you in some way, and you just don't feel like you can ever get it back. It's extremely frustrating. But people that are highly controlling and need to control the situation, that's often a symptom of that. And I will never forget when it was right before I went into first grade, and for some reason I was terrified that I was going to lose self-control, and I was just going to act up in class, and I was going to yell at the teacher, and I was going to throw things, and I was so worried about that for days and days up to where I started first grade. I'll never forget that. And to this day, I'm not quite sure what triggered that, why I was so worried about it, but it was something that came up again and again, probably until about 8th or 9th grade. I just had this extreme fear of losing control of myself, which is kind of odd, but again, it's sign or symptom of complex PTSD. The 10th one that she talks about would be safety issues. And, this one makes a great deal of sense to anybody that's experienced something traumatic. You've been through something horrible, and you feel like the only one you can trust is yourself. You might isolate yourself. You might be very skeptical of others. You might have a great deal of difficulty trusting someone else. And so you're going to be very skeptical of what are their motives and what do they really want. Um, and that can be really detrimental to interpersonal relationships with people. That's a difficult one, but you never truly feel safe in any situation, and you feel like you can't rely on anyone, and that's a very difficult one to deal with. And the PTSD and complex PTSD can really happen to anyone, at any age, honestly. Then this is strictly right here my personal opinion, and this comes through my personal experience both as a patient and as a psych nurse. But it's in my opinion that the complex PTSD is the most difficult to sort out and to treat, honestly. And it seems to have lifelong lasting effects on your emotional, your mental, and your physical well-being. And honestly, it seems to me that one of the most difficult things to treat. Again, that's strictly just my opinion, but that's how I feel about it. I just wanted to read something, you guys, that I wrote in my journal just the other night, and I was laughing about it this morning, so I thought I would share it with you. I just wrote, it is so funny to me now. I have always wanted to be a nurse. I have always had such a strong desire to help, to heal, to lift up, to take away pain and suffering. I have probably spent as much time being a patient as I have a nurse. I am so glad that I didn't know that it would end up as such. I don't know I don't know if I'd walk that path, the path that I have, if I had known that. But I am a more effective nurse because I've so often been a patient, and I have no regrets anymore. But the last thing I'd ever dreamt of when I started out in nursing school was that I would end up using my nursing skills as a content creator on YouTube. But WTH, never saw that one coming. I didn't expect that. But you guys, I can't be happier. It just, everything finally makes sense. The first, good grief, 46, 7 years of hell that I went through got me to the point where I can do this now. And I'm pretty darn happy about it. I've been sober for 15 years. I feel like I finally got a hold of my mental and physical health to the point where I can function and do things. And I'm just happy that I can do this and that I can help people, because that's really what I want to do. That really is my intent here, you guys. And, that is, I didn't know how long it would take me to run through all of that. But I'm at the end, and yeah, we've still got quite a bit of time. But I want to just let everybody know that, on the lifeboat, every single member of the crew and everybody that comes to my own channel and listens to the things that I present, I pray constantly for every one of you. And I pray that you can find the answers you're looking for, and that you can find the help that you're looking for. And, I want to say to everybody on my own channel that might be watching, if you are suffering with an addiction, please come and check out the lifeboat, because I was just overwhelmed after watching one live stream, back in October last year. I was overwhelmed at the light and the hope that the lifeboat was offering. And it wasn't just Mark and Tommy. It was everybody in the chat, felt so welcome and so understood. And it's a truly, truly wonderful thing. It really is. I just want to take a minute and see who is in chat. Got Rick and Scooby with a Doobie, Ultra Maggot, John Doe, Rick, let's see, Chris King is here. Stand for Truth. Did I say John Doe already? We've got Metric Console. That's a new name to me. Really glad you're here. Let's see. Um, Todd G. He's here. Charlie Mullins. Faithful Charlie. You are always here. And, I know I already said it in the chat, Charlie, but thank you for everything. You are always here. And you always, man, what would we do without Charlie? He's always posting everything that we need in the chat, and he's welcoming everybody that's new. And, everybody on the crew is just awesome. Really, this is a great thing. Let's see. I don't want to miss anybody. Sorry, I just keep seeing the same names over and over. And and then the seventh son went over to my channel, and so I've got my channel chat right here too. Oh, Cindy D, hello Cindy, and Trainee Human. Oh, you guys, thank you for coming and putting up with me. Welcome everybody. And again, I've been praying for you guys. I pray multiple times a day for everybody. You guys can do this. You can. I told you guys, everybody, last night on the live stream, I told you guys how bad off I was at one point. I was in the state hospital. Guys, it doesn't get much worse than that. I've had so many shock therapy treatments. I could not tell you how many. It's more than 30. I'm bad off for a long time, but you can come if you want to. You can overcome anything. You can do this. I promise you. I'm sitting here telling you because I've done it and I know it can be done. And, I know I said this last night, but, a long time ago, I made a deal with God that if you would help me through this, I would try to do the same. And that's why I'm here. So anyway, I hope you guys have a great Taco Tuesday. Go get some tacos or make some. That would be even better. Much healthier if you make them yourself. But anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and more than likely I will be here again this evening at 6 p.m. So you guys have a great day.